Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. It's Colin, and today we're going to be going over the brand new Deafheaven album, Lonely People with Power. So, this is the sixth full-length LP from San Francisco experimental black metal band Deafheaven, and oh man, are they back! We are so back. So, 2013's Sunbather, probably one of my favorite metal albums of the past 20 years. I think there's an argument to be made of their avant-garde sort of genre blending approach that took like shoegaze and black metal and a handful of other like snippets of other genres and threw them together in a way that probably no one ever thought to do before, and came out with arguably one of the best albums of the 2010s. And between then and now, they've had some good stuff. The follow-up of New Bermuda was pretty solid. Ordinary Corrupt Human Love was one that I did enjoy, but I didn't find myself going back to a ton. And then the last album they came out with, which was 2021's Infinite Granite, while good, was clearly a departure from their like black metal, death metal roots, and a lot more just like straight up shoegaze with some more like alt rock, indie rock. Definitely still experimental, but a lot more clean singing than like they had been known to do before. So I wasn't exactly sure what to expect on this album, and I didn't listen to any singles leading up to this. I wanted to experience the whole album by itself for the first time, which I think is pretty crucial to do in a Deafheaven album, because they very clearly put a lot of thought and effort into creating a whole album and like a listening experience. And I can say that Lonely People with Power is the best thing that they've done since Sunbather, hands down. I absolutely love this album. Definitely going to be picking it up on vinyl as soon as I get a chance. And yeah, it might be my favorite album of the year so far. So, that out of the way, let's go ahead and start talking about the songs themselves. But before we do that, if you guys could please like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this video and what you thought of this album. I'd really appreciate it. The album opens up with Incidental 1. Now, this is very much just like an intro track. There's some like spacey strings and synths and some muffled vocals. Doesn't last very long though. I want to say it's like about a minute long, but it leads into the first actual song on the album of Doberman. Now, this song starts off with some pretty straightforward, just like hard rock instrumentation, which the classic Deafheaven screams go really well over. But then there's like, it kind of starts getting a little bit heavier as it goes like a little bit further into the song. The drums definitely start building and building a little bit. They've got some like crazy blast beats. The guitar switches from like more melodic driven like riffs to more sort of just like atmospheric parts. There's like one of the guitar leads is like kind of keeping pace with the drums, especially when it does eventually explode into like the full-blown blast beats and like black metal aesthetics that they like do really, really well. While the other guitar tone is very much just more of like a backing sort of like atmospheric tone, and the duality of that works super well. And you can tell just right off the bat that this is going to be one hell of an album from this opening song. There's even some like heavy metal chugging in the middle of it with like some really groovy parts as well. They do such a good job of like moving in and out of like really intense instrumentation and more like laid back stuff, and they do it so well. After that is Magnolia, and Magnolia again kind of starts off with a more like thrash heavy metal leaning instrumentation intro, and the vocals here start off very sort of like monotonous and very like singular, but then they eventually evolve into a really cool cadence that just fits super well with the backing beat, especially like the drums when it does get back into those blast beats, and like the fills on this are just absolutely insane. The guitar work is crazy. Again, it's kind of shifting back and through between the more sort of like melodic metal and then the more just like driving and pounding sort of black metal that they can do really well. And then, at the core though, like those vocals are black death metal vocals, and they work super well. This does feel like one of their most just like straight up metal songs they've done in a while, especially coming off their last album. While they've always been known for blending sort of more wall of sound, post-metal, shoegazy stuff with more like traditional black metal stylings, This song is just a straight up metal track in it, and it's absolutely kick ass. Which then leads into the Garden route. And this, I think, is just like them at their peak of blending genres. So the instrumentation starts off very like almost post punky, a little bit of indie rock, but with like the muffled, sort of filtered screaming vocals on top of it. And the song kind of effortlessly blends in between the metal and the indie rock and the shoegaze super, super well. And it's not like a combination I would have even thought of, even as like this band has done it before. But the way they do it on this song is super new and fresh and just really, really interesting. I did not think that like post punk and black metal could ever like be combined well. But hey, before I listened to Sunbather, I didn't think that black metal and shoegaze could ever be combined. So this band just continues to break preconceived notions of what I think genre barriers are. There's some really like somber atmospheric parts that just effortlessly glide into some more like mind melting, just like in your face, just wall of sound metal with like feedback and blah. It's absolutely crazy how effortlessly they do it. And this song is such a great example of why they're so good at it. Then from there, you get into Heathen. And Heathen is the first song so far on the album that does feature some clean vocals. There's some more like kind of guttural, almost like tribal vocals at first, but then it gets into some more just straight up clean singing. The instrumentation on this song is probably the most just like straight up shoegazy wall of sound on the entire album. But again, as it goes in between the clean vocals and the harsh vocals, you are reminded that it is still a metal album. And yeah, this is probably the most peaceful black metal song I've ever listened to. And again, I hesitate to even really call this one black metal outside of the vocals because it's really not. But yeah, it's a very calming, peaceful song, even given how like harsh the vocals can be in certain parts, but not in a bad way. Like it's in a good way. And yeah, by this point in the album, like one thing that's really separating it from like what I've listened to in the past is how clearly defined each song is, while still like cohesively having like a theme and a structure throughout the album. Like you are not getting mixed up in one song to another, but they all still very much sound like they're supposed to be here. And this song just like drives that point home super, super well. And then after that, we get into Amethyst. And Amethyst is probably my favorite song on the entire album. It starts off very chill, laid back, almost kind of like a Midwest emo intro, adjacent sort of. There's like some spoken word, sort of like poetic parts on it. Very chill, very sad. And then it does eventually get into some of the most melodic screaming on the album. The drums are pointed and rhythmic. The guitars go from like their signature melodic sort of wall of sound to a little bit more catchy and driving. It eventually explodes into this cacophony of just reverb and blast beats and just like absolute emotion, and the vibes and feel that I get from this song are just so strong. And I could probably sit and listen to this on loop for at least a few listens because it is that good. From there, we get into Incidental 2 featuring Jay Matthews of Boy Harsher. And this is another like sort of intermission track. It is about 4.5 minutes long. But like the main bulk of it is just sort of like this very somber, sort of like distorted synths and like just filtered vocals from Jay. And then it does eventually get into like a little bit more of a kind of a light guitar background. And then once we get past, I want to say like the 3-minute mark, it kind of just dissolves into what sounds like a straight up like horror soundtrack, just like feedback, reverb, muffled screams, very much more like soundtrack leaning than like an actual song. But it does lead pretty perfectly into Revelator, which kicks in with some really technical like death metal sounds. And it's absolutely insane like how effortlessly it seems, going from something that's clearly meant to be like a transition track and right back into the heaviness. And it works really, really well. The drums on this are absolutely killer. The guitars are more riff focused and a little bit more like stand out than they have been previously. I get some like light Gojira vibes on certain parts of this song. Vocals, again, absolutely killer here. They just are working super, super well throughout this whole album. It's super catchy, super playful. My only critique is, because we've gotten it a little bit on like one of the previous songs, I would have loved some clean vocals here, just kind of alternating back and forth between them. I think there's some parts of the song that lead itself to that very, very well. From there, we go into Body Behavior, and this is another kind of groovy, laid back sort of indie jam. There's like some half screams, sort of like some pseudo screams in the vocals here at certain parts. It does eventually get a little bit harsher at other parts as well, but there's this really melodic sort of like break in the middle of the song. Just technically a beautiful, beautiful song. And I love the guitar work here. Again, the drums are absolutely killer. You can actually hear the bass come through. It's not just kind of like amplifying and helping the drums and guitar like it does on most of the songs on this album. And yeah, just an absolutely amazing track on what's at this point been an incredible, incredible listening experience. You get a lot more shoegaze meets like rock feel on this one as well. I love when they like get kind of back into that shoegazy feel without like really taking away from the metal experience, which they just do super, super well. And then they get into Incidental 3 featuring Paul Banks, who is the lead vocalist of the indie band Interpol. It's interesting that this is how they decided to use this feature. It's just like a spoken word part over some like eerie synths. Not super long, definitely shorter than the last sort of intermission track. And it's good. It adds this, again, like a nice little break throughout the album. I think that the way that they've structured this album, the way that they've intentionally placed the songs is just adding to the whole experience so much. Because from there we get into Winona. And Winona is an amazing, amazing song. So it builds on the strings and keys before the drums kind of come in. About a minute in is when the drums really hit. It's very light, like cymbal focus at first, and there's like the snare kind of building up in the background, and then it eventually cascades into like full-blown wall of sound, just madness right in your face, just overwhelming almost, but in the best possible way. The vocals hit in about 2.5 minutes in, but when they do, they are just like timed exactly right, and it's right when you would want them after like this really epic buildup of a song. The way the guitar goes in and out of like the more kind of melodic, spacey shoegaze and like the straight up metal riffs is, again, highlighted so well here. And then about 4 minutes in, it kind of drops back down into a really chill, laid back sort of like indie jam. Does that for a little bit and then just finishes off with like probably some of the most brutal bits on the entire album. And it's a longer song for sure. I think this one clocks in at like just over 7 minutes, but absolutely worth the journey and right up there with Amethyst with for me as like one of the best songs on the album. And then the last track, which is The Marvelous Orange Tree. This is probably the best way I've heard an album end in a long time. So this just builds on everything they've been doing so far with like the catchy indie sort of mellow spacey stuff, mixed effortlessly in with the more like driven black metal. They do go back and forth with some harsh and clean vocals here and do it super well, and just a perfect way to tie a bow on probably one of my favorite listening experiences in a long time. So yeah, if you haven't been able to tell by now, I absolutely love this album. Probably one of my favorite albums of the year, hands down. I will be shocked if this does not end up on my top 5 list at the end of the year. So spoiler alert, you're probably going to see this there. I'm going to go pick this up on vinyl as soon as I can. And if you like Deafheaven at all, like you're going to love this album. But if you like any sort of more like experimental metal or shoegaze or anything sort of in that genre, because there's really nothing else that sounds like Deafheaven, I highly recommend you checking this out. If you like metal heavy music at all, like go listen to this album. It's absolutely incredible. It gets a strong A+ for me. One of the best albums of the year. It will probably be something that I continue to listen to throughout the year on a heavy rotation. So that's going to be it for me, guys. Once again, let me know down in the comments what you thought of this album. Go check it out if you haven't yet. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.